Hello and welcome to 310 to Left, the newest podcast trying to bring you inside what's happening with the Red Sox. I'm Tom Caron of the New England Sports Network, Nesson. You found this on Nesson, so you probably knew that. You also know that he's Alex Speier, the legendary Stats Masterson and the longtime scribe of the Boston Globe. Alex, how are you, my friend?
My heart is full of pine, Tom. I'm celebrating I'm going to start this baseball podcast by celebrating your soccer undertaking. But I'm great. I'm super excited to be here, and this is going to be a lot of fun.
And since we are a video podcast, I can show you. This is the soccer team. I am a very small part of the ownership group of the USL League One team that was announced over the weekend. The branding reveal. Season tickets available now, Alex. I'll send you a link. But the soccer team will play next year. We've got a ways off. Although it is sort of a good launching point for who's going to join us today. Theo Epstein is part of the ownership group of Fenway Sports Group. So he and I, we're going to get rid of you completely, Alex. He and I are going to talk about the trials and tribulations and challenges of being ownership. No, that's not at all the case. We'll get to Theo in a minute. But first of all, let's talk about this podcast a little bit because there are other podcasts out there. You and I have been covering this team for a very long time. I think we first shared space in a press box in 2002. Does that sound right?
Well, yeah, that's we go back. That is exactly right. Dating back to the beginning of this ownership group, right? And that's of this Red Sox ownership group. So we've seen some things at Fenway Park.
I have more hair now than I did then. Thank you, Dr. Matthew Lepresti. But mine is much grayer. Yeah, well, but yours has remained dark. How did you pull that off?
We're working on that. My kids are making sure that is a transforming that the color palette is transforming over time.
Yeah, it will get gray. Red Sox wrapped up a weekend series against the Cubs. We're basically into May, right? Surprising. You wrote a great piece. Say, how is this team managing to stay above water with we're talking a ridiculous rash of injuries. 4 starting pitchers, if you include Giolito. A Story done for the year, maybe the most important guy on the team, certainly defensively. You were without Devers for the better part of 2 weeks on and off. O'Neill was on the injured list. Casas now out for months. And yet they win 2 out of 3 against the Cubs. They will play the final game of April, going into that game with the Giants, 3 games above 500. How are they doing this?
First of all, it's insane that they are doing it. I think it's important to step back to that point, right? Like I talked with Trevor Story about this on Sunday, and he was like, yeah, we're winning at times with 7 of our starters injured, starting position players injured. That's crazy. And of course, the reason is that the pitchers who have been there, and again, you're right to point out, 4 out of the top 6 guys, 4 out of their first 6 options as starting pitchers are on the injured list right now. They have nonetheless managed to conjure terrific pitching performances. And I think that that's a credit to what Craig Breslow and Andrew Bailey and Justin Willard and others have done in terms of overhauling the pitching infrastructure. And to me, this is a fascinating glimpse into how you can be a sustainable team. I don't think that the Red Sox are where they will be, and we'll talk to Theo Epstein about that very question. But I think that you're seeing no one likes it when the Red Sox get compared to the Rays, but people should view comparisons to the Rays as flattering. And the thing that the Rays have done for the last decade, or at least the last, let's say, 7 years in their window of contention, is to be consistently competitive because they have always had pitching to back up whatever injuries they have. They always have a replacement pitcher available. And thus far, the Red Sox have had that in an impressive fashion where everyone is taking a step forward.
And now Nick Pivetta getting closer to rehab, so you may start to actually get guys back, and maybe that pitching gets even better. All right, we'll talk a little more on the backside about what's coming up for the Red Sox. But right now, I think he's the perfect leadoff hitter for 310 to Left. Theo Epstein, after a weekend with the Cubs in town, he's not as hands-on as he was, but obviously a guy who transformed the championship expectations in Boston, and then did the same thing with the Cubs, then went to work of making the game a better product for fans to consume when he worked with Major League Baseball. Now he's back, not at Fenway full-time, but as part of the Fenway Sports Group ownership group, and he joins us as our first guest on this first edition of 310 to Left. Well, Theo Palooza has come and gone over the weekend with the Red Sox taking on the Cubs, so the perfect time to have the man himself with us, Theo Epstein, joining us. Theo, what was the weekend like having worlds collide at Fenway Park for you?
It was fun. It wasn't that big a deal. I kept a very low profile. I actually just drove up from Connecticut on Saturday with my two sons to go to the game, and then Sunday we went to the car show because my youngest is a big um, auto enthusiast, and then we drove back. So that was fine. Had to do an interview for Sunday Night Baseball, but no, I look. We play every year now, Cubs and Red Sox. So I think the novelty is wearing off, but it's really cool to see both franchises connect because they're similarly situated. And then for me, with a personal history, it's great to see a lot of old friends.
And obviously, well, I mean, first of all, ESPN took all the good questions with the, Chicago deep dish versus Boston North End. We were going to go into the deep questions, but we have Alex Speier, so we have actual baseball questions, right, Alex?
I mean, arguably, I was actually curious though. Like you talk about keeping a low profile. I do think back to like the insanity of the beginning of your tenure as a general manager. When you walk into Fenway, is there a part of you that just remembers like the visceral experience and maybe the shock of what it was like to suddenly be this very public figure as a guy in your late 20s?
Yeah, I mean that was a long time ago now, but it does stay with you. I mean, I was someone who definitely cherished my privacy and anonymity, and then to all of a sudden have that change so quickly, and at a time when I had a lot of added responsibility with the job, it kind of leaves a mark, but you just get used to it. It helps you grow up, helps you mature, and I think I'm better for having gone through that. And then it helps you shape your choices going forward. I was pretty high profile for I guess for 18 years, nine with the Red Sox and nine with the Cubs, and so now I have a little bit more control over how I do my job and how often people have to see my face. And despite being honored to appear on your podcast as the first guest, I'm doing a lot less and kind of shaping my life the way I want to, which is usually pretty behind the scenes. But it's been good. I'm glad I went through that. It wasn't always fun at the time, but it also comes with the territory and is a great opportunity to to be part of two great franchises at the highest level with such passionate fan bases. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Is it still as chaotic? Is it still as chaotic an undertaking? Like, as you watch Brez kind of navigate his, obviously you're very close with Craig Breslow. As you watch him navigate it, like, is it the same? Is it the same job in terms of what it's like being a public figure?
I think it's close. It's probably not all the way there. I mean, we're at a bit of a lull right now, or a moment in time where the Red Sox aren't quite as top of mind as they had been, and they will be, I think, again soon. But that back in those days in the early 2000s with the Red Sox Yankees rivalry, what we were trying to accomplish and how dramatic things got, it was a little bit. There was a little bit more hyper focus, I think. So it was a little bit more of a prominent position, but still, still a lot comes with the job. And Brez not having worked, full time from the home city before has a big adjustment to make, including with the public part of the job. And I think he's handling it really well. I think making a lot of good choices, and over time, his personality will sort of come to the fore even more, and people will get to know and like him. But it's probably not quite the same. Even in the local market, the Red Sox aren't sort of right now, because of recent performance, aren't where they should be, but will be again soon. And then nationally, it's a little bit different market as well, a little bit different environment as well.
Theo, as you said, and by design, right, you haven't been real public since coming back and becoming part of FSG. But when you have been around, I think the question everybody asks is, what is your role, right? What is, so the sort of day to day, and FSG has grown to such a large group, right? The Liverpool and the NASCAR and the Penguins and everything. So I guess the two-part question for me, because I think that's what you do for podcasts. It's our first. But I think, the questions are, A, like what is the day-to-day? And B, how much have you been able to touch and learn of the non-Red Sox properties that FSG is involved in?
Yeah. So day to day, it's an advisor role. Well, two things. So I bought in as a very small piece as a part owner. So there's that, and then there's an advisor role. I guess technically it's called senior advisor for FSG as a whole, not just for the Red Sox. So it's been kind of learning each of the individual companies and seeing where I can help, where I can make an impact. So that means different things for the different organizations. So with the Red Sox, it's really being there for Brez any way I can, kind of the way Bill LaJoy and others were for me when I first took over. So some weeks that means, texting or talking on the phone with Brez like 3 or 4 times a day, every day. And other weeks it means, checking in just a couple times, seeing, depending what's going on. And, some of the like bigger decisions or bigger philosophical questions, he'll ask me my opinion and why. And I don't make the decisions, but I kind of give him a perspective based on my experiences, having done that job. And then also, having worked at the league office and, been around the game a long time, but it's not so much, hey, we had someone hit the IL, who are we going to call up to take his place? Although sometimes it can, sometimes they'll ask me my opinion on something like that, but it's more bigger picture, like how to build a great organization, where we're going to find our competitive advantages, et cetera. Just being there for Brez and his group any way that I can. And then with the other organizations, it's different. Like golf, for instance, with FSG making, the big lead investment in Strategic Sports Group and PGA Tour Enterprises. There's a lot going on there now because it's sort of early innings. So I've spent a little time trying to get up to speed and understand the lay of the land, and then again trying to call on my experience to provide some assistance wherever I can. So I was part of the rule change process at MLB, for example, with the pitch timer and the other rule changes in 2023. Well, golf's at a moment in time where they're leaning into their future and thinking about where they can progress as a tour and as a sport. And so my experience with MLB might come in handy here or there. It's just adding another perspective. With the Pittsburgh Penguins, I've gotten to know their GM really well, and I know just enough hockey to make myself dangerous. So I'm not informing personnel decisions there, but more, again, big picture, macro issues, how to gain competitive advantages, how to set up an organization the right way, how to handle certain issues. And Kyle doesn't need a lot of help from me, but will call on me from time to time. And with Liverpool, it's, Mike Gordon has been the lead guy there, and we're really close. And it's a fascinating organization that they built over there, and it's going through a period of change. So I've been through lots of regime changes, and just provide counsel as I can on that one. And the good thing about FSG is kind of always changing and evolving, but every organization is important and takes huge priority and means so much to us. So there's constantly decisions to make, plans to make, and every day is an opportunity to gain competitive advantage in a hyper competitive landscape.
It's interesting that you mentioned like the idea of the hyper competitive landscape, right? Because like one of the things that's striking to me is you had this 2-decade run where like you're living and dying with the performance of a single team on a given day. How different is what you do now, that engaged, invested in, like, you're living and dying with like every Penguins, Liverpool, like Red Sox game, or are you now kind of removed in a more academic / strategic position?
Yeah, there's definitely a difference. I mean, I think it's also true for if you're the assistant GM versus the GM, because I've done both of those, and you when you're the assistant GM, you care, you're just as invested. it kind of means everything to you when you're at the ballpark. But after a tough loss, when you kind of leave it at the park. When you go home, it doesn't dominate the rest of your day. When you're a GM, or when you're the number one person running the organization, you feel such a responsibility for so many people that work with you, that believe in you, and then the broader fan base, that you take it home with you. And it can kind of, it's hard work to not let it impact your mood, and therefore, impact your family and things like that. So that's very immersive as an experience. And I've, in this role, or even when I was assistant GM, it's a lot easier to separate. So, 18 years as the true number one in two different places, that was plenty of time to sort of feel that way. But I think it's easier to lead a full and healthier and more well-rounded life when you can kind of lift your head out of the water and see and breathe a little bit and see things with proper perspective. And it definitely able to do that in this role. Still care, still personal to me, still very competitive, still want to win, but it's not something you take home quite as much or quite as immersively.
And I would think now, like us, you can consume the game a little closer to what a spectator's consuming, right? And you were so involved in the rule changes, the pace of play, where the game is today. Are you pretty happy with where it is? I know the ABS is coming probably, or some sort of automated assistance for umpire. Like, where should it go? What would you like to see happen next?
Yeah, well, that was another good two-part question. I'll answer for the first part. Yeah, I think we're all really happy, with how the rule changes in 23 went. We went from averaging 3 hours and 10 minutes per game to averaging 2 hours and 40 minutes. Nearly a fifth of all 9-inning games were over 3.5 hours before the rule changes, and last year there were, I think it was 9 games all year that went 3.5 hours that didn't go to extra innings. So it's just a much faster, more natural, crisper, more organic pace to the game that allows fans to be more engaged. And we just, same great game, just eliminated the dead time. And I think it's been, a huge positive for the sport, for fans, for young fans, and for the future growth of the game. That said, there's definitely a lot more to do. It's the sports media entertainment landscape is way more competitive than it used to be. There's a lot of different entities out there trying to grab eyeballs away from baseball fans. So we need to continue to grow and evolve. And rule changes are just one lever that you can pull. There's sort of a lot of different ways that you can sort of maintain the tradition of a sport, but also embrace progress. And the commissioner and his group are hard at work at that. The game's going to look a lot different 10 years from now than it looks right now. That's whether you are intentional about it and try to shape the future, which I think is the best way to go about it. Or if you just sit back and let things happen, it's going to change anyway. We saw that over the last 20 years with the way the game's evolved. So it's an exciting time to be in baseball and any sport. For that matter, just with that delicacy of balancing tradition and embracing progress.
Along those lines, I think that you've raised a couple of interesting points along the way. When you were finishing up with the Cubs, you mentioned that the things that you're pursuing in terms of optimization and efficiency and a lot of B school words like end up being at the expense of the aesthetics and of the sport and some of the engagement with it. And it feels, and I think that you've certainly been aware of the disappearing role of the starting pitcher, and to a degree, the disposable nature of starting pitchers, right? In this era where it's like max everything. I think of it as like the Icarus problem, right? Where like everyone in terms of pitchers are being trained to chase the sun until their wings melt and they drop into the sea. How much is it incumbent upon Major League Baseball to figure out how to how to save pitching, basically, and to reestablish the prominence of starting pitching in a way that does that does appeal both to the game's roots and that can make it a more compelling product moving forward.
Yeah, you're definitely right that sort of left to their own devices, clubs and players are going to seek to optimize performance. That's what they should do. The GMs and players are paid to perform and to win, not necessarily to put the most entertaining product out there. So it's not their job. But I think as demonstrated by the commissioner's leadership with the 2023 rule changes, it is the job of Central Baseball to create an environment where incentives for those who compete, so GMs and organizations and players, are essentially aligned in such a way that it competing and optimizing within a certain structure also produces a great product, and therefore the competition is aligned with entertainment and provides a great product for the fans. And so the pitch timer is a good example of that. The bigger bases, small thing, but the bigger bases are an example of that, shortening the distance between bases, changing the math when it comes to running the bases, and stolen bases led to 50% increase along with the pitch timer rules, 50% increase in stolen base attempts. Those stolen bases are among fans' favorite plays at the ballpark. And so you saw a 50% spike, and something like that is good and entertaining and fan friendly. And so when it comes to pitching, left to their own devices, organizations and GMs and pitching coaches and pitchers are going to lean into maximizing, performance, and that has led to, incredible gains in stuff and velocity and spin and shorter outings, and frankly more and more injuries, and more sort of fungibility when it comes to pitching staffs, because instead of using 15 pitchers over the course of a season, you're now using 35 pitchers over the course of a season, and sort of you're distributing those 1,400 innings that you need over the course of a season among more and more players, and the pitchers are becoming more and more anonymous to fans, unfortunately, and there's a trickle down effect. It becomes harder to sort of invest in pitching when there's this amount of attrition, harder for fans to get to know them, harder for them to become household names and stars. So yeah, I think MLB certainly recognizes that it's their role to look at ways to fix a situation. There's a big study that MLB is leading going on right now about pitching health and modern pitching. And there have already been some interventions to try to reverse the trend. An example would be the 3-batter minimum. An example would be putting a 13 pitcher limit on the roster. And there are a lot of other ways to go about it. But I think that kind of like real structural change over time with the rules and with the roster rules probably will be necessary, because modern pitching left to its own devices isn't going to stop where it is now. It's going to keep going to the point where you're going to see more and more fungibility with pitching, and it's going to continue to evolve in a way where the starting pitcher has less and less of a role. And I think starting pitchers are some of the most important protagonists that we have in the industry. I think fans love seeing the same pitcher out there for an extended period of time, getting to follow his arc over the course of a game, the ups, the downs, see him have to battle through adversity, either thrive or fail in the end. And that kind of lead character is good for fans, and it's good for the industry. And what we have now, because the priorities of modern pitching have changed from, the starting pitcher's role used to be go as deep in the game as you can, giving your team a chance to win. Try to go 9 if you can. If not, go 8. If not, go 7. Eat up as many of those 1,400 innings over the course of the season as you can. Now it's just miss as many bats as you can. Don't worry if it's only 4 1/3. We've got 8 guys behind you, throw 99 miles an hour coming out of the bullpen. So it's going to take some intervention. It's going to take some structural change, some rule changes in order to shift the priorities again back, to emphasize volume and efficiency and durability a little bit more, and sort of pure power and bat missing and max effort a little bit less, and restoring that equilibrium, I think in the long run will be really good for the game, really good for starting pitching, and ultimately really good for fans.
Do you have a favorite pitcher's duel that you saw, like as a kid growing up, or maybe it was one that you saw in those 18 years in the number one chair?
Yeah, one of my favorites was when I was coming up with the Padres, and I was working the radar gun behind home plate. And this is going to be kind of random, but Pedro Martinez with the Expos faced off against Joey Hamilton at then Jack Murphy Stadium. And I won't even have the details right. We'll look it up afterwards. But I think it was like Pedro might have had 9 no-hit innings, and then gave it up in the 10th, and Joey Hamilton had a one-hitter or something through 9. It was incredible, but it was sort of my first look at peak Pedro, and the guy pitching against him was pretty good that night too, Joey, and it was eye-opening. Yeah, I think we all kind of remember the first time you saw Pedro with 3 top of the charts ridiculous weapons and like the best competitiveness and mound demeanor of all time, like staring right at you. In my case, I'm sitting behind the plate with a gun. Left a huge impression. I guess not a big enough impression because I should remember the details, but I'm getting old. Over 25 years ago for sure.
Pedro always brought that one up and said that, like, when he was asked periodically about never having thrown a no-hitter, he said, I had one for 9 innings, so he counted it.
Okay. Yes. So he gave up his first hit in the 10th, right?
Yeah.
How often do you see to your last question, how often do you see a starting pitcher out there in the 10th inning these days? So pretty amazing.
Towards that end, I mean, the Red Sox, as we sit here, 3 games above 500, with what, 4 if you count Giolito starting pitchers on the IL. I'm the king of the two-parter. Your impressions of what they've done so far, but I really wanted to hit, so I'll condense them. You mentioned before, like, when the Red Sox are top of mind in this town again, and that won't be too long. Like, what is your projection? When will this team go from surprisingly good now to maybe just straight out good? How do you see that journey?
Yeah. Starting pitching, especially with the pitching, has been amazing. And, huge credit to Breslow and Andrew Bailey and the whole pitching infrastructure and AC, for leaning into it and his role in it. Clearly there's been a lot of good optimization going on with the existing pitchers, but then also credit to the pitchers themselves. I think, some of the slings and arrows they've taken and the development that's gone on in previous years is, that can either sink you or it can make you stronger and make you better if you approach it the right way. And clearly those guys are better for having gone through some of the tough times the last couple of years. So it's just really nice to witness, a strong pitching group and infrastructure with full buy-in and alignment and belief from the top of the organization to the bottom. It's, I think, one of the things we all expected that a Craig Breslow-led baseball operation would get right, and it's been best case scenario. And I saw it firsthand with the Cubs as well when we hired him to come help our pitching over there. So that's been great to see. And as far as how long until the Red Sox are back on top again, look, I think individual players' development's not linear. It's the same way with an organization, but having a robust and really effective and hopefully dominant pitching infrastructure and pitching staff is a great starting point. And then you look, the other strength of the organization is the young position player core, many of whom are developing in the upper minors. You put those two things together and you make a lot of good decisions, and you use your resources the right way. It can happen a lot sooner than you think. So I'm not going to put a timetable on. It's not my place. It's not my role. But I think with Brez and with AC and with the position player core and with what you're seeing with the pitching infrastructure and the pitching staff, there are a lot of important ingredients in place.
Theo, let me ask you real quick as a follow up on that, and there's only one part. Do you, when you have a group that you see here at Fenway that's maximizing potential, can a place become a destination? Can you sort of grow that and pitchers say, "Hey, I've seen what they've done with others. I want to go there and give that a shot," or do we in the media make that a bigger deal?
No, it definitely can. I mean, free agents make decisions for all different reasons, and money is usually at the top of at or near the top of the list, which is understandable. So one of players work extremely hard to get to free agency, and so that's usually a big part of it. But there's other factors that come into play. Sometimes it's geography, sometimes it's family preferences or whatnot. But the demonstrated ability to help players get better is huge. And we had a run in Chicago where we sort of bought low on a few guys and sort of got the most out of them. And then you see when it's time to talk to free agents, you can make a pretty compelling case, especially buy low guys or pitchers who are talented but coming off not their something that's not their best year. You can have really substantive conversations with them about here's what we see. Here's how we think we can help make you better. Here's how it would go if you're here. And if you have a track record of doing that, it resonates a lot more than if they have to sort of, trust implicitly what you're saying. So yeah, the ability to have a strong pitching infrastructure, get these kind of results, if you can sustain it over time is pretty attractive to free agents. And then with everything else Boston has going for it as a destination, I think, look, as players get older and have choices about where they want to play, yes, they want to make money. They also want to play somewhere where baseball matters and where they're playing in front of big crowds. And Boston has that, and they want to go somewhere where they can win. So continuing to, grow as an organization and get back to where we should be in the standings is an important part of attracting free agents as well.
So as we talk about free agent players and the choices that they make in terms of figuring out their career path, I guess it seems appropriate to ask about your own career path moving forward, right? And that gets back to the question of your current role, one where Sam Kennedy, you know him, mentioned that he thought that this was for you kind of an interim point on the way to something different down the road in terms of ownership. What do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life? When you grow up?
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't look at it as interim. But it's probably not a final destination for me, but I'm really happy. I love the role. I'm not actively out there looking for anything else. This role has been a perfect combination for me of old friends and new challenges, and allows me to do it in a way where I feel like I'm making an impact. And I also feel like, I can be a good dad and have a good, well-rounded life. So it's been great. Long-term, there's probably something down the road where I'll have the opportunity to lead again and make big decisions again and have big plans and try to execute on something that's meaningful to me and maybe meaningful to a lot of people, but I don't know what it is. And I'll, when it shows up, when the right opportunity shows up, I'll know it. But yeah, this has been a great sort of entry point into ownership. I'm learning a lot, and maybe it'll help me down the road if there's an opportunity to be a bigger part of an ownership group or lead a new project. I'm surrounding myself with great people, and John Henry and Tom Werner, Mike Gordon, Sam Kennedy, and the different leadership groups of all the different organizations within FSG, the broader platform. The people have grown this company so much. It's been great to learn from them and find small ways to contribute. And yeah, I look forward to my time here, and then way down the road, if something comes along, I'll be better for having been here as well.
If that something was commissioner of baseball, would you be interested?
That's Rob is doing a great job, and the game's in really good hands, as demonstrated by last year's changes and all the different ways the game's growing. And he he just announced he's going to be around for a long time, and I welcome that. And even though I don't work there anymore formally, sort of look forward to finding ways here and there informally where I can help out. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm with FSG, and someday might get involved in a bigger role in ownership somewhere. And but always look to stay connected to baseball in some form or another. Definitely my first love.
Hey, one quick question. This weekend, Jed and Craig hatched a trade in person, old school.
Yeah.
The Garrett Cooper trade happened in the box. You ever have a face-to-face trade that you remember, or are you jealous?
Yeah, definitely have done face-to-face trades. Most of them were back at the GM meetings and owners meetings when people actually left their room. And I learned from one of the best, and Kevin Towers, who specialized in the face-to-face trade, sometimes after a few cocktails, because he was pretty good at holding his liquor. But yeah, I've had I don't think I've ever done a whole trade like in a visiting GM's box or something from start to finish, but definitely have advanced conversations, maybe followed up and finished something the next day or two. But that was good to see. Hopefully it's a mutually beneficial deal.
Maybe
but no
get
cocktails.
some of these GMs out of their rooms. Get them out of their rooms at the winter meetings. Maybe this will lead to more of that. Theo, we really appreciate you coming on.
Let's get fit.
Right? Get them off Zoom. Well, and yeah, because every year now you go to the winter meetings, everybody talks about, do we really need the winter meetings? We could do this on Zoom. No.
Yeah.
No. We need to be in person. We appreciate you coming on via Zoom. We didn't do it in person.
I was going to say, I hope the irony is felt.
Yeah, always. Listen, you brought a championship to the fans in Boston and the fans in Chicago. You made the game more palatable, and I think you have already saved our podcast, even though it's only the first. So you can add that to your checklist. Thank you for coming on.
How can it need saving? It's the first episode. If it already needs saving,
we have projections. We have projections, just like baseball. Theo, thank you. We appreciate the visit. Yeah, that's right. It is not linear. Take care.
Good to see you, Theo.
Always great to catch up with Theo. I learned so much from him when he was with the Red Sox about roster construction, and it's great to see him to continually find new avenues to impact the game and to connect with sports.
And it's a huge deal for the Red Sox that there is a kind of senior voice and experienced voice that's there to help Craig Breslow. The fact that he mentioned talking to Craig at times 3 to 4 times a day, sometimes much less than that, does underscore the idea that, like, I think that someone said, when has Theo Epstein ever been involved in something as as just kind of like a figurehead or a hands-off figure? Well, it's very clear that there is involvement on a regular basis, and that his involvement with FSG is one where he's interested in making a difference, and that's for the Red Sox probably a very good thing. Yes or no? Will he be the commissioner of baseball? I'd say no. I think that he would like to be a boss rather than having 30 of them, which is about the most impossible task in sports. No doubt about that. All right, real quick, we want to do a prediction of the week. You got one? We'll let you lead off, Alex. I think that one thing that's been a little bit eye-opening is that I think that Zach Kelly, even though he didn't break with the team, looks like he has a chance to be a pretty impactful reliever for them. And Alex Cora has already said his role is going to grow based both on how his arsenal is different than that of other relievers and on the fact that his stuff has been really, really good after an offseason overhaul. What do you think? My prediction of the week is that this time next week, when we do our third podcast, Tyler O'Neill will be the home run leader in Major League Baseball. How about that? That's all I got. I think he seems like hitting at Fenway, so he's got a few more days there. And he wants to be in the home run derby, right? He's made that clear. So now that is on the on record, he's got to now step up and act like a guy who wants to be in the home run derby. So you got to follow up your words with actions. Yes. Right. Never mind free agency on the horizon for him. He's pursuing the home run derby. Also free agency. Stat of the week. Stats Masterson always will lead off this topic. Well, this one is a pretty basic one, but the Red Sox are 1-11 when they commit an unearned run, and they are 15-2 when they don't. So play clean baseball. They're a pretty good team when they do that.
Catch the ball, you have a better chance to win games. There's no question about that. Here's mine, and it's just a simple reminder of the beauty of baseball. 63.4 miles an hour and an expected batting average or expected base hit average of 110. Those were the numbers for Tyler O'Neill's walk-off base hit Sunday night in the ninth inning. Just a reminder that sometimes you can pitch and execute the pitch exactly as you want, but the baseball gods wanted everyone to go home at a reasonable hour on Sunday night, and it dropped in for a base hit. So thank you, Tyler.
And yet it got him no closer to the home run derby, however.
No, but if they have a bloop single derby, he is now a front runner for that. Minor details. You've been working these details for years and years. And who's your leadoff hitter, or who are you looking at this coming week in the minors?
Well, one of the most striking performers to date in the Red Sox minor league system has been Marcelo Meyer. We all know him as the guy who's been the top prospect since the moment he was drafted. But he's off to a great start this year, hitting .315 with an OPS of 834 in AA Portland. He's hitting the ball very hard. He's doing a better job this year of not chasing pitches out of the strike zone, which has been a huge emphasis for him. But more than that, I got a chance to spend some time with him in spring training, and he is playing with an edge that's a little bit different. He's very motivated by the fact that last season for him was a disappointment based on the fact that it ended with injury, and he did not perform in AA. He's determined to prove that he's still really, really good and belongs among the elite prospects in baseball, so he's off to a good start in that regard.
You know, that Portland team is stacked right now, right? Blaze Jordan just had his 6th double on Sunday. Nick York had his 5th double. They're hitting for extra base hits. We've known for a long time about Meyer and watching Teal and Roman Anthony. You know, Nick York kind of fell off a lot of people's radars. Blaze Jordan over the last year, right, has really sort of come back into his own. There's more than just Marcelo Meyer in Portland.
That's an incredibly important minor league team for the future of the Red Sox, and it runs deeper even than those 5. You see a couple of their key pitchers. Wickelman Gonzalez had a really good start on Sunday. He was in the strike zone, and when he does that, he tends to not give up many hits. In this case, 8 punch-outs, 1 hit, 1 walk. You also have Angel Bastardo, who's another promising starting pitching prospect who threw 6 shutout innings over the weekend. And you're absolutely right. York is a guy who has fallen off the radar a little bit because he is behind that big 3 of Meyer, Teal, and Anthony. But he's a guy who's surging, and he should, right? He's repeating AA. He spent all of 2023 in Portland, so he should be pushing at a point where he can push to show that he's ready to handle. He's handling AA, and he's ready for the next challenge. So he's off to a start with that, and it'll be interesting to see with Vaughn Grissom landing on the active roster and no longer in AAA whether or not an opportunity might open for him soon.
And important to remember that Vaughn Grissom is younger than some of the prospects we're talking about. Right. I mean, I think this is a guy that Red Sox fans have forgotten about because you haven't seen him yet. He's hit everywhere he's been. If they keep Rafaela at shortstop and he's playing second base, this offense should get significantly a big kick out of the return of Grissom.
It's wild to think about how much change we're about to see with the Red Sox infield. So, we know what it was supposed to be entering the season, but we're about to have Devers at third, Rafaela at short, Grissom at second, and I think probably a lot of Garrett Cooper at first base. So not exactly how they drew it up on paper, but Grissom is going to be pretty significant. We've seen second base be an area. The whole middle infield dynamic has been troubling for the Red Sox. Grissom has a chance to stabilize that. I think he saw 61 fastballs while he was on his AAA rehab assignment. He swung and missed twice. So this is a guy who can handle velocity, and then you just hope that he's able to kind of like stay on the secondary heavy attack plans of big leaguers. But you're right, he can hit.
And since he won't be facing the Red Sox staff, he'll see fastballs. Right, because other teams still throw 4-seam fastballs. So
except the Giants. The Giants, I think, have the second lowest fastball usage rate in baseball. Right. So Andrew Bailey, whose career was predicated on the fact that he discovered that his fastball cut really hard and would just use it like crazy, has become the enemy of fastballs.
Yes, the residual Bailey effect still being felt in San Francisco. Did you enjoy this? It was our first go-around. What'd you think?
I had a blast. I got to, we got to some good Hearts of Pine talk, and I think
call back. Thank you.
getting to connect with Theo and getting to show off my 310 to Yuma poster with your face taped on there.
But you got to get. I'm pointing the wrong way. You got to get the other guy covered up with your face. We need somebody get a Alex Speier face for Yulbrenner. That's it. We're running out of time. Next week or next edition on Thursday, Friday, whenever it comes out, Patrick Dempsey, the sexiest man alive, according to People magazine. How much sexiness can you handle on one podcast? Find out in the next edition of 310 to Left. For Alex Speier, I'm Tom Karen. We'll see you next time.